Hello everyone and welcome to Slash's third annual ranking all of the world's players tier list. I'm Spreggles, aka Jake, your resident content cowboy here, and I'm going to be along for this ride as we get to see a world champion's mind as he ranks all of the players heading to Worlds. Slash, how you doing, dude?
It's good to be here, Spreggles. I'm doing good.
It's good to be here. I'm happy to be here too, man.
So this is the third time I'm doing this, but I again want to put a disclaimer at the start. These are all extremely good players, and I'm only judging them based on their regionals performance. And so it's not throughout the year. I don't know the inner workings. So they could be a lot better. They could be a lot worse than what I think. But I think they're all amazing players. This is just a for fun tier list, and this is my opinion. And there's teams that have like 2 months to prepare, like even 3 months to prepare before Worlds. So they could be a lot better than their regionals performance. A great example was POI's team last year. I ranked them all B tier and they ended up getting 3rd place. But I think they just fixed a lot of the issues that I saw them have in regionals, and that's really good. They worked on those before Worlds. So for everyone that's on my last tier list, I'm going to be doing things a bit differently this time. We're going to go over the teams in order. So I think it'll be a lot more funny because we'll see the different placements of the teammates. I'm sure there's a lot of like Worlds players actually watching this video, so I think they'll enjoy that a lot. And I also have awards I'll be giving out to players based on different merits. There's going to be like best overall player in their region, best player overall. So yeah, let's hop right into it.
Let's do it. We're starting with Asia Pacific East, and for some of this, Slash has requested that I do it in a bit of an announcer voice. So, this is Shin and Rude, Slash's award for one of the 5 dark horses to steal the show this year. All 5 members qualified for Worlds in Japan last year, with Shingdi and Ice getting top 8 on Orangutan. Ice has been to the first Worlds in London as well and has been consistently top of his region for years. These are all amazingly talented players that have not proven themselves as much as they should have by now. With how talented they are, let's hope the curse doesn't continue this year. Let's talk about BKZ.
Yeah, so getting started, let's talk about the actual rankings. So I have the top tier as EX because those are so broken in Unite. I thought it'd be fitting. And then the next ranking is going to be SS. So yes, there's a lot of S tiers, but these guys went to Worlds. They deserve it. So in EX tier, we have Shindi. And I think he's the best on this team. He's really, really good at Blaziken, and he has a couple other picks. I'd say the only thing holding him back from being the best player, as you'll see later on, is that he has a very small mon pool. He only plays like 2 to 3 Pokemon. Next up is Ice. He actually role swapped to support. He was normally a defender before, and I think he's pretty good. SS tier is still really, really good. And the rest of them, we have BKZ, who's all the way down in A tier. So I'm not the biggest fan of him. He did okay as a top laner, but a lot of top laners tend to be inters, and he is no exception. Last but not least are the defender and attacker, and I just have them in S tier here.
Great. I mean, this looks like a very powerful team, obviously.
Yeah.
Everyone was so scared of Shin and Rude at the AOS Cup. I can tell you that everyone was talking about this team, about how good they were doing in scrims and how worried they were to run into them. Ice has been given Slash's award for the most consistent APAC player, and Shingdi has been given Slash's award for the best mechanical APAC player. Moving on to Talon. They got a high 3rd place finish in the Asia Champion League earlier this year and beat Omo, the 2nd place team at Worlds last year, to win their regionals in an insanely close set. They have beautiful team fights playing around Hoopa primarily. Their playstyle looks like Omo last year in many ways, which is probably a factor in why they beat them. Lance has been given Slash's award for the best kidnapper at Worlds.
So I kind of have to explain the kidnapper award because it sounds a little sus. So Lance at regionals played Blastoise a lot, and he like really like went above and beyond to like sneak behind the enemy team and kidnap them into the rest of his team. And he did this against the second place team at Worlds, so he had to be pretty good at it because they got second at Worlds last year, and he was still doing this to this team. So that's why he is the best kidnapper in my opinion. So we're gonna have Lance in a solid A tier here. So he's really good, but he only played Blastoise in regionals. And I think I've seen him play a couple picks in other tournaments, but they did not look very pretty. So he's kind of a Blastoise merchant. And that is why he's an A tier. He's really good at Blastoise and kidnapping, but that's about all he did. Now, KYY is their Hoopa player, and this team heavily relies on Hoopa. I actually think Hoopa is the reason that they won the regionals. And so he's really good at Hoopa. He did decently on Eldegoss, but the other supports that I saw him play were not that pretty. So he's kind of a two-trick compared to Lance, and that's why they're really good at their picks. But they only have like 1 or 2 picks. Now, Sync 1 actually really did impress me. So I have him at the top of S tier here. I thought he did really well mechanically. I mean, Glaceon players are usually like pretty insane at their characters, and he did well on other characters. So I was very impressed by him. And RBX is going to be in S tier here, but below the SAR defender. He was pretty decent. Nothing like too crazy, nothing too bad either. And last but not least is Dylan, who again, this guy is also a one-trick on Sylveon. He did not look very good on other picks. So this team really reminds me of Omo Abyssinian, the second place team from last year, which they beat to qualify for Worlds because they have very little Pokemon to play in their respective roles. And honestly, Omo was the same last year. So that's cool to see.
Very scary to be a Blastoise one-trick right now, I've got to say. It is not looking good. Moving on to our next team, Elevate. Slash's award for sticking together as a 5-man team. The team is Omo, who have been renamed to Elevate. They got second place in Worlds last year, but unfortunately, as many of you have seen, they just made a tweet saying they will not be able to attend Worlds this year in Hawaii due to visa issues. I hope right now that they are able to fix that because I personally would love to see them. Slash?
Yeah, I hope they show up too, but we're just going to rank them anyways because just in case they show up, I think it's also just fun to rank them. So I have Miva in A tier. Even when they got second place last year, I was not the biggest Miva fan because he only played like Blastoise and Lapras, and that was it. I think when we banned those or like picked those, he ended up playing Slowbro top. So this guy only plays Takes top, which if it works, it works. But not the craziest mechanical player. Still A tier though, so respectable. Next I have JR Absent, and this guy was insane at Worlds last year. He still looks pretty good this year, but also not the best of the best support that I was watching, so that's why he's only ranked in S tier. Now Shua. So Shua was actually missing a lot of combos in regionals, and that could be due to a variety of factors, like just wasn't playing well that day. There was like really bad pain, but he did not look the best in regionals that day. So I'm not sure what's going on with him, but he's going to be at the bottom of S tier. Tempest was like probably the second best tank, if not the best tank last year. So he's really good. He still looked pretty solid. Nothing to the level of hard carrying though that he was doing before. So that's why he's ranked in S tier here as well. And then Lewis, their Mew. This guy did not secure much on Mew, so I wasn't the biggest fan. Definitely, I've seen better Mews, and that's why he's ranked there.
Moving on to our next team, Isan Amento. These players have never been seen before on the international stage. They seem to have very good mechanics and coordination, and they're a decently strong team, but unfortunately, they have always fallen short to other top teams in their own region. Definitely a team that will look to prove themselves on the world stage, and I should mention, they have received no Slash awards.
Yeah, so this team are like brand new players I haven't really seen before. And honestly, their mechanics were really decent. Like, their mechanics weren't bad at all. But they had like just fundamentals missing. Like not covering back caps and losing because of points. Stuff like that. That seemed to be able to be capitalized on by better teams in their region. But the person I want to highlight here is Ryu on his team. You'll see the rest of his team I kind of had an A tier, but I believe Ryu was actually the real deal. He was really good. He had some insane plays on Trevenant. So I was a big fan of him. I thought he played really well. And the last one we'll put here in S tier, their attacker was pretty good.
It's interesting because I've been reviewing a lot of the regional finals with Doob Snacks, prepping for Worlds, working on casting and stuff, and I fully agree with you on Ryu. I think the pre-plays were unbelievable, and we were calling them out the entire time. Let's move on to Asia Pacific West with Team MYS. Slash's award for one of the 5 best teams to look out for at Worlds this year. A team of insanely good, insanely consistent players. They are always the counterpart to SAR from the West, but seemingly better in many ways. They also have yet to prove themselves on the international stage, despite how good they are, and rest assured, they will come out swinging.
Yeah, so this core of MYS has actually stuck together for a while. I think Yemu, Yane, and Foxy, those 3 specifically, have been around since the beginning of the game, teamed together. So it's pretty cool to see them continue to team together. And I think Foxy is really insanely good this year. I ranked him really high up last year, but this year he's on another level. And I think I have an award for that if you want to read it off, Spraggles.
Yes, the Night Mew Foxy is Slash's award for best overall APAC player. Slash's award for the best attacker in the world.
Yeah, so out of the 5 roles for attacker, I think he's the best attacker player across all the regions. So he's going to be a threat to watch out for. He also makes content, so you guys can look him up on YouTube. I don't know how much he's made recently, but he has some really good Mew guides and other stuff to check out. So next is Yemu. I was pretty impressed by his gameplay, but he also did seem to get caught out sometimes, but his mechanics were really good. Overall game sense pretty good, but he did have a couple in plays here and there. So SS tier still really good, but still some stuff to work on. And Yane as well, really good support plays. He has been improved a lot. Since last year, I wasn't Yane's biggest fan, but I think he did role swap to support. There were some games he was playing Hoopa, some games he was playing Zoroark. This game, he looks like a full support player, and I think it's helping him get into the role better. SS tier is still really good. And now HT, this is a newer player to their team this year, and I think he's really good for, I think I had him around here. HT is really good at mechanical Pokemon, and just like, he seems like kind of a rookie. Like, he makes a lot of rookie mistakes. I haven't seen him before, so I don't know if he's a rookie, but that would be my guess. But for being a rookie, he's really, really good already, and I can't wait to see what he accomplishes.
HT has been awarded Slash's award for best up-and-coming player from APAC.
And then last but not least is Rebonds, and he's actually in EX tier with Foxy. So I was really impressed by him as a tank. I think he's one of the best tanks we'll see at Worlds.
I love hearing so much good stuff about MIS. I can't wait to see him there.
I'm excited.
Moving on to our next team, Klock. Many of these players have qualified for Worlds in Japan last year, but fell short in groups, not really making a statement. They will surely be looking to make a name for themselves this year. And despite Talon in their group outperforming them at the Asia Champion League, they already look like a potentially better team than them.
Yeah, so this is actually my group. If people didn't know, I'm on Team G. And when we were looking at them, we expected Talon to be kind of the most dangerous group to look out for, or team to look out for, since they got 3rd in Asia Champion League. But Klock actually really impressed me. They looked better than Talon in a lot of ways. So we're not sure which team to look out for more, because Talon does have more accomplishments. So maybe they'll show up to Worlds better. But definitely interesting to see which is best. So I have their top laner, Leafeon, in A tier. And this guy is one of the first in a series of players that I'll point out as very inconsistent. Sometimes he plays insanely well, like perfectly for a couple minutes, and then he'll just int for a couple minutes. And it's just a give or take. Sometimes he'll int for a game, then he'll hard carry the next game. But I think there's always going to be players like that, and they're fun to watch. So next I have their support, not Tyza. I have him in S tier. He just looked really solid overall. Kind of gave me vibes of like the glue holding the team together. So support players are really important, especially on chaotic teams like this. They're just a very chaotic team that fight a lot. So I also have their jungler in S tier. He missed a lot of combos, but he also had some insane combos he hit. So Definitely hit or miss. But for Zoro and Scyther being your main, I just feel like there wasn't a level of consistency there to make him SS tier. Sometimes he'd hit really good combos, sometimes he wouldn't. Next, I have their defender. So this guy was pretty decent, nothing to write home about, but he also didn't int. He did the defender's job, which I think if a defender does their job well, I'm just going to automatically put them in S because that's so important for a team that they're getting space well. And it just makes it so hard to play the game when a defender's not doing that. But I might be biased since I'm a defender main. And next we have their attacker player, Sun Zage. And his icon here is Delphox, but he's actually one of the best Mews in APAC. I think he could give any of these attacker players a run for their money on their Mew. The issue is he didn't look very good on any other picks.
Our next team, Onic Rise. A team of very consistent and good players with four having qualified for Worlds last year. Flash rated these 4 players very highly last year for them to fall short in groups. Let's see if they can prove their worth this year.
Yeah, so I had their top laner, Dev, here at the bottom of A tier. I was not a fan of him. He was really not playing well in my opinion, which is surprising me because their 5th player before was Necro last year, and I thought he was like the best player on their team. So I don't really know where he went, if he quit or like something happened. But that's who they replaced him with, and I was not a big fan. Next, I have Zoe, their support, and Zoe seemed really on top of things, really good. So I have them in SS tier. Just really solid overall. Eeyore, I had ranked very highly before, and this year I have him ranked in A tier. So I was not the biggest fan of him. He was playing a lot of weird picks that, in my opinion, are not meta, so that does affect the ranking. Like you see him on Decidueye here. I'm a Decidueye hater. I don't think it'll work at Worlds. And not only was he playing a lot of weird picks like Decidueye, he wasn't playing that well on them. He was missing a lot of arrows. So not sure what he's doing there. But when he was playing meta Pokemon before, like Speedsters, I remember him being good at Speedsters. So I'm not sure what changed there. Now, Aluna is going to be at the top of S tier here. I think I have an award for Aluna, actually, specifically.
You do. Aluna has been awarded Slash's award for coolest name at Worlds.
Yeah, I've always thought their name was pretty cool. If you see someone's name you think is cooler, you're welcome to put it in the comments below. I'm curious what the coolest name for you so far has been, Spriggles.
Always thought that Night Mew Foxy was not only really good, but also the cool name helped. And I have to say, I love saying Xingdi. Like, no joke, something about the best players, their names are also awesome.
Yeah. Actually, fun fact, I think Night Mew Foxy recently name changed to Night Mew Foxy this year. Their name was just like Foxy before in-game. It might have been Night Mew the whole time, but like they only recently changed their in-game name to Night Mew Foxy. But I have the last member of Onic here in SS tier, AXQ. I had him highly rated last year. I still think he's pretty good this year as well.
Our next team is Onyx. They barely scraped out a qualification from last chance qualifiers to make it to Worlds as the last team from APAC. Our second full team of 5 players that have never been seen on the international stage. Let's see if they can also prove why APAC has the second best region last year along with their sister teams.
Yeah, so this guy unfortunately is going to get the award for the first B tier of the tier list.
Slash's award for the first B tier and first snub of the tier list.
He just looked very lost in the games. I was not the biggest fan of Onyx. Of course, these are newer players I haven't seen before, so they might have just been lost. I don't know. Their tank player looked like actually decently knew what he was doing, so he's higher up here in the A tier. But all of them are kind of low A tier and B tier. I was not the biggest fan of them at all.
Alright, moving on to Brazil. Legacy, the award for sticking together as a 5-man team, and Slash's award for being one of the 5 best teams to look out for at Worlds. They destroyed Talibobo Believers in groups last year, which were many fans' tournament's favorites. I know, all of us were shocked to win the whole thing, and finished in a very respectable 5th place. The same entire roster has stuck together this whole year and once again come first place in Brazil. Super excited to see how things will shake up for them this year. There are no limits for what this team can achieve. And there are a few awards on this team as well that we'll get to.
Yeah, so I'm personally super excited to see what they do this year. I actually was I was one of the full believers of them last year. In my group predictions, I said they'd make it out instead of Nouns Esports. So I had full faith in them to pull it out. Honestly, it was closer than I thought, but it was a super hype series. I thought they'd destroy Nouns, which they kind of did, but it was a insanely close series. So I have fouled. Oh yeah, Talibo. Sorry. Tunes on Nouns this year, so it kind of confused me when I was thinking about it. Next I have Lel, and they're just really solid overall. Like, they're all really solid players. I have Mazo as the best player on their team. But none of them quite made the cut for me for EX tier. That doesn't denounce them as a team or anything. I still think as a team, they're really, really strong. For them at the top of SS tier, they are going to be a threat. So, but just none of them were at the level of EX for me, like these other three. And the last one, this is going to be funny because all the four are in SS tier, but I actually have Wolf at the bottom of A tier. This guy's a dirty Inter in my eyes. He always gets caught out and dies.
We also have awards. Falb has Slash's award for the best mechanical player in Brazil. Mazo has Slash's award for the best overall player in Brazil, and Slash's award for the most consistent player in Brazil. Our next team, Dreammax Esports, a team of unknown players that definitely gave Legacy a run for their money in grand finals. Each game was insanely close, and they had many amazing outplays on Brazil's finest players.
Yeah, so unfortunately for these guys, I feel their pain because grand finals did not show how good they were, because every game was insanely close. Like, they should have won every game, but they lost 0-3. Like, they got 3-0'd, which for how close the games were is just, I feel sad for them, honestly. And this team was just insanely good. They were almost one of my picks for one of the 4 dark horses to win this year. I actually think you forgot to read. Did you read off the award for Mazo's team?
Yeah, one of the 5 best teams.
Okay. Yeah. So this team I almost put as a dark horse, but they weren't quite good enough. Still really good, and a team to look out for that can definitely pull off some upsets. But their support player I was not a fan of. They are the second B tier of the list. However, the rest of them I was impressed by, so I actually think I have them higher up here. And their tank here was top of A tier, and so was their attacker.
Into EU, we're going to start with Nouns Esports. They have been awarded Slash's award for one of the 5 dark horses to steal the show this year, and Slash's award for the most awards on a single team, giving them another award. Toon Slim has consistently failed and fallen short of expectations, not qualifying for Worlds the first year, failing in groups the next year, but this time he has built Europe's finest team we have seen to date, with 3 out of 5 players making second in Worlds the first year. Sorayu may be more unknown than the rest, but make no mistake, he has been one of Europe's best players for years.
Yeah, so when I like have played so much, I usually visualize what is like the best way to play an entire game out versus an enemy team. And Nouns is one of the few teams, MYS did this too, where they do like pretty much 80% of the things I think about in my head that sometimes I wish my own team would do. So that is how insanely respectable I think they are, and how much I respect them as players. Like, a lot of their mechanics are just perfect a lot of the times. That being said, the first 2 I do have rated a little lower, just because they really fit the team well. I think this team would not be the team they are without it, but they do int a lot sometimes. So Gatlu, I'm sorry, you're one of my favorite players in Europe, but you're going to be in the middle of S tier. Not that low, but I'm sure for him it's a big hit. He got 2nd place at Worlds. And this is just because he dies with ult a lot, makes a lot of int in their perfect macro. They do a lot. Usually he's the one inting. Adesu as well just makes a lot of minor mistakes, but Adesu is a lot more forgivable because he actually role swapped this year. So he used to be jungler, if you're confused why he's support now. And then Saryu. So getting to these three are all EX tier. So I think this is the first team to have 3 EXs on the team. So I just think they're insanely good. Bruv has been really consistent. I think he might have the award for that, actually, now that I think about it. So yeah, you can read off the awards now because there's a lot.
Yes, there are. Gotlu has Slash's award for the best greeting in the world. Adesu has Slash's award for the best player that role swapped this year. Sarayu has Slash's award for Europe's best overall player. Bruv HD has Slash's award for Europe's most consistent player. And Toon Slim has Slash's award for the biggest brain in the world. I gotta say, I love that you're so excited about Nouns. I really want to see them do well. And I also agree about Sarayu. I think he's cracked.
Yeah, I mean, watching Sarayu play is just a blessing, honestly. He does a lot of stuff perfectly, and you're like, wow, I want to copy that. So,
our next team from EU, Yala Bingo. Slash gave them an award for the most underrated team. This team has some of Europe's finest on a roster that works really well. For some reason, though, due to potentially lack of motivation or grinding, they haven't performed as well as they should. Let's see if they will find the motivation to push for a World's Trophy in Hawaii.
Yeah, so as someone who gets a lot of insight into top teams, this team just for months barely played the game at all, if not like 0. And they'd actually ego about it. They're like, look how well we're doing without playing the game. Which, I mean, props to them for doing well without playing the game. But I don't think it's the best mindset to consistently improve and do well at Worlds. So I haven't heard anything in like the more recent months. So I hope that they started grinding. Because this team has insanely talented players. That honestly, I think the talent is going to waste with their internal mindset. So I have 60s at the bottom of SS tier. The rest of them are just S tier, so they're all like really solid. I think this is one of the few teams that just all the players are S tier and above. So I'm definitely a big fan of them mechanically, and I hope they start grinding again.
I really like watching Yala Bingo. I've been watching them all year. They are, when hot, almost unbeatable, and when not, it's really interesting. I can't wait to see which one shows up to Hawaii. Our next team from EU, Vamos. You may have noticed some of your EU favorites missing from Worlds this year, and that's because early on they decided they would not be able to pay for travel, gave up their World spots to this team. Not only that, but the second place team in regionals did not qualify for Worlds, so this team is all things considered the 5th best team in EU. They definitely have large shoes to fill and a lot to prove with their first ever appearance on the international stage.
Yeah, so Klaus and Gek actually formed a team, and they were the 2nd seed EU team in the first year that went to Worlds, and they got 2nd place at regionals. That was the first tournament Gek played the entire year. Gek was actually kind of a personal mentor of mine when I started, so I was really proud to see how well he did. And like, he didn't play at all the whole year and got 2nd. Unfortunately, only playing one tournament means they're not going to qualify with points. And then the other team, which had Zervis, which was another person on Tally Bobo, and a lot of other fan favorites, they did qualify, but they did not get a travel award, and because they didn't get the travel award, they did not want to go to Worlds. So that's why this team is in their shoes, and this team is, let's just say, I don't think is Worlds ready, and we're gonna have the first C tier of the tier list, unfortunately, go to their support player. So, I do think some of their players were pretty decent, making it to A tier, but I don't expect to see this team do much at Worlds.
Moving to our next region, India. S8UL Esports Slash's award for one of the 5 dark horses to win it all this year. It's criminal that there's only one Indian spot this year. India has an amazing 2nd place run in the Asia Champion League this year, and India last year was the closest team to beating Luminosity in Worlds. If India got 2nd in all of Asia, and that Indian team only got 3rd place in regionals and aren't even going to Worlds, what kind of monsters will S8UL be at Worlds? I'm excited to see, and I have to say, I totally agree with a lot of this here, Slash. They did seem like the only team to give you guys trouble at Worlds.
Yeah, I still, like, sometimes I wake up in a cold sweat thinking about how I barely got the Ray with Slowbro Scald, and we would have lost the game otherwise. In the very last game, it was just a full flip. And getting it with Scald, that's not the best secure. So that's a little risky, but I've been big fans of Soul for a while now. Even before Worlds, I was hailing All Might as one of the best top laners. And this year, actually, it seemed like All Might was not as good as he was last year. So he actually fell off a bit, but I feel like his teammates filled his shoes. So, like for example, Snowy, he was on their team last year, but this year he just seemed like a monster. I actually had him in EX tier. That's how well he was playing. And the rest just go up to S tier. I think I had the rest rated very low. So the fact they've all caught up or even surpassed All Might from last year just speaks about how hard this team has been working, and I really hope to see them at Worlds.
Slash has awarded Snowy the award for the best overall player in India. Moving to our next region, Japan. Champion Lord, Slash's award for one of the top 5 teams at Worlds this year. And let me tell you, they've got my award as well. I think they're probably the favorite to win the whole thing in my eyes. Many players on this team make up the Japanese team that got 3rd in the world last year. They've only gotten stronger as they've combined many of the strongest Japanese players from across the region in their team. A super impressive team that definitely has everything it takes to win Worlds.
Yeah, so PYI is now going to overtake Nightmew Foxy as the best player currently on the tier list. That's how well he was playing. I think he's insanely good this year. Definitely very impressive. Also, I just realized I forgot to put Rex in. So from Soul, let me do that real quick. I have Rex at SS tier. So he's pretty decent on the tank. But anyways, back to Champion Lord. So you'll notice their in-game tags are actually FL. And that's because, interesting fact, the broadcast did not show their battle stats once. I went through the entire 10-hour broadcast a couple of times. Could not believe it. So these screenshots are from like the battle stats, like how much damage they did. And I could not get one from there. So I had to go all the way to PY's Twitter and find a screenshot of him playing with his team. And they recently signed an org, so congrats Sam. And that's what this new tag is. I won't spoil it. I guess you'll see it at Worlds. But Yume is by far like the best support I've seen. I think I have an award for him, right?
You do. Slash's award for the best support in the world.
Yeah, this guy was really impressive. I think no other support I watched even comes close to this guy. So I was extremely impressed by Yume. Like some of the stuff he did is like only stuff I've thought about. Like, wow, if I was really good at the game, I'd do this. And he just does it. And makes it look easy too. Lucapo, I actually am not the biggest fan. There's a lot of like Lucapo believers. I think he's really good. I think he fits in really well with the rest of the team. But I'm more of a fan of the other members. And also, I'm sorry, Ton, but I have Ton near the bottom of S tier. So every time, like, this is one of the teams that does the perfect macro every time I picture about it. And the guy who's always inting the perfect macro is Ton. So that's why he's ranked so low. I think I actually have him in A tier. That's how low I have him. So, and then the last but not least, I have no clue how to pronounce this guy's name, so we're just gonna call him their attacker. I have him in SS tier. So he's definitely really good. But I think the 2 best players on this team by far are PYI and Yume.
You've given PYI Slash's award for the most improved player and Slash's award for the best overall player in Japan.
Yeah, so I forgot to go over that. So I put PYI in B tier last year. So going from B tier to now the currently best player on the tier list so far is definitely a huge improvement.
Moving to Kabi-chan's, Slash's award for one of the top 5 teams at Worlds this year. Their track record in the biggest tournaments this year has been insane and consistent, from the Asia League champions to 2nd place in EUIC to 2nd place at the Japanese regionals. It would be a huge shock for everyone if they didn't at least get top 4 at Worlds.
Yeah, so I mean, having this track record is something that teams only dream of, really. Like my team has only had this track record so far that they have like once. I mean, the first year we won Worlds, we also won regionals. But even last year, I think we only got like second or third in regionals. So the amount of huge performances they've done to get top place finishes in all these kind of international tournaments is insane. Especially being Asia champions, it's just really good. So I have them at the top of SS tier here. Let me see. So the support I have in, yeah, I just have them all at the top of SS tier. This is like the same thing as Mazu's team, where I don't think any of them are extremely good on their own. There is one standout player, but they're just all like so good as a unit. And I believe this is the first team. Oh, never mind. I have their attacker in S tier. I was gonna say first team to have all SS tiers, but there's one S tier there. I was not that big of a fan of their attacker. They did int a lot in my eyes, but I am Tomato. He was someone to look out for last year that I pinpointed in my tier list last year, and it's the same this year. And I mean, he's proven himself this year, so he's definitely insanely good.
Tomato has received 2 Slash awards. Slash's award for the most consistent Japanese player and Slash's award for the best tank player in the world. And I gotta say, everyone's a huge Tomato fan.
Yeah.
Like, everyone freaks out about Tomato. Tomato is that good.
Honestly, I miss when I was the only Tomato fan. When I was the only one that I recognized as talents. Now it's like, now he's become too mainstream, you know?
Yeah, I know. It's not cool anymore. He's the band only you knew about. Now everyone knows the best. Our next team from Japan, Reject. This is a severe jump in macro between the top 2 Japanese teams and this team, and it's painfully obvious when they face, as all their positional mistakes are capitalized on. But make no mistake, this team is on par mechanically with the rest of the Japanese teams.
Yeah, so, I mean, Haruta I was actually a pretty big fan of. And you see him on Zera Aura, so he's probably one of the only people to play Zera Aura, especially in regionals. But the thing is, he did combos perfectly on the Pokemon he played. I'm just not, like, it's not a meta Pokemon in my opinion. It's one of the worst Pokemon. So, despite him playing, like, almost flawlessly on Zera Aura, I think it's not enough to land him in SS tier because he's playing just the non-meta picks. You do have to adapt to the meta, in my opinion. I have Yako at the top of A tier. I have Satake. He honestly had some insane Zoro combos, but also some insane ints. This guy had some of the highest highs on Zoro I've seen, and some of the lowest lows. Like, I think he literally pentakilled Kabuchans. Kabuchans. I just butchered that. In regionals at 240, only to lose the raid fight to int and then lose the game. He lost a game, he pentakilled them. So I just think that speaks to the highest highs and lowest lows, how inconsistent he is. And their tank player, I was a huge hater of their tank player. I'm sorry, but they just did not seem to know how to tank. So one of the only Japanese player in B tier. And then to top it off with their attacker, I was not the biggest fan either.
Moving to region, Korea. Zora Tigers Gaming. Slash's award for one of the 5 dark horses to steal the show this year. They have finally usurped S4L, who was the king of Pokemon Unite Korea before. This team is actually insanely good from seemingly out of nowhere. Their only weakness seems to be their habit of drafting very, very weak early games. Let's see if they will fix that by the time Worlds comes around.
Yeah, so there was a game that this team actually drafted, like, it was like they drafted Gyarados, Blissey, Urshifu, and then like Umbreon and Delphox. And I was like, this they would be 1000 owed if it was another Worlds team. So I really worry for them if they don't realize how bad drafting like 5 scaling Pokemon is. Because Urshifu is good early game, but it can just get invaded by the highest level teams, which I'm sure a lot of people have seen. So these guys were insanely good mechanically. I have really high hopes for them, again, as the dark horse of the team. But I really hope they change their draft philosophy soon. So we're going to have J-John in S tier. Chobo, I was very impressed by his Blissey plays. I mean, every blue Urshi or hyper carry like Venusaur is carried by their Blissey. They will not do well without a good support that's playing perfectly. So the blue Urshi was really good, don't get me wrong. Honestly, it's a pair, right? So like Overlord and Elo. Like, both need to be insanely good at the game to pull off some of the plays you'll see. So I was very impressed by their play. And another fun fact, they were playing Blue Urshifu in regionals before it got buffed. The dog shit Blue Urshifu that everyone hated, they were actually playing it before it got buffed when everyone thought it was one of the worst Pokemon in the game. And they won regionals with it. So they will probably be one of the top Blue Urshi teams to look out for since they were playing it before the buff. So I'd be on the lookout for that because Blue Urshi is going to be a monster at Worlds.
Our next region, Latin America North. We're going to start with Giannis. Slash's award for one of the 5 dark horses to steal the show this year. Their core players have stuck together and consistently been the best of the best in Latin for years. They made getting first in their region look easy, and make no mistake, it's not an easy region. LATAM North got 3rd place in EUIC this year.
Yeah, so for those that don't know EUIC, it's basically like an MSI. What is MSI? It's like a mini Worlds is what I'd say. So all the teams from across the world came to compete, just like Worlds, just for a smaller prize pool. And it is a little harder to participate. But the fact that LATAM South, I believe, right? Yeah, LATAM South won EUIC, and then LATAM North got 3rd, means LATAM is a really, really strong region this year. And this is the #1 team from LATAM North. So definitely nothing to scoff at. And I think Froy here, I have an award for him.
You do.
Okay.
Froy has the award for Slash's most consistent LATAM player.
Yeah, so Froy's been at the top of LATAM for a while. The first year he did struggle a bit. I think he got picked up as a sub though. So he didn't quite make Worlds, but he's been insanely consistent for a while now. And he played really well in regionals. I used to play with Froy all the time in Season 1. So I'm happy to see him doing well. And I look forward to seeing how they do at Worlds.
ReRespawn is our next team. Reggie is probably the best speedster player in the world. They also got 3rd at EUIC this year, but they fell very short in their own regionals, not making it close to finals at all and having to rely on points to qualify. Reggie also has a habit of picking Gengar, which most pros consider one of the worst Pokemon in the game. What can we say? He's dedicated to speedsters.
Yeah, so, I mean, Reggie, when this team first formed, used to play Gengar in our scrims, and we'd literally leave the scrim. We're like, this is a waste of time. Why are you trolling the scrim? And it's just insane to see Reggie pulling out the Gengar in like regionals, like some of the biggest tournaments, and he legit thinks it's good. And that's why, unfortunately, like I have him, like this guy's such an insane player. It's hard to put into words. But I have him at the bottom of EX tier, not near the top. He definitely could be. Just because of the Pokemon picks he decides to play in practice, like Gengar, are just not it. But besides that, he is definitely one of like the top players to look out for at Worlds. Now the rest of his team, this is like a case where I do think they're a little carried by Reggie. Obviously the support player has to be pretty good, so I have them a little higher up in S tier. But the rest of his team I was not a big fan of. I have them in A and B tier. Yeah, I have their attacker in B tier. So one of the first LATAM players to be in B tier so far.
And Reggie does have Slash's award for the biggest inter. Our next team, Ento. Probably one of the most inconsistent teams you will ever see. Every game they play is ultra chaotic, Slash's words, not mine. But they make it work as a team and have crazy good mechanics to back it up.
Yeah, so I am a big fan of Ento. They're really like one of the teams that are built for esports in my opinion, because you don't want a team to be too good. The games are going to be boring. Like in grand finals when we 3-0 teams had their number, I feel like that was boring for a lot of people to watch. But like the very high intensive, just every single game is close no matter what team they're playing against. That's the type of team Ento is, and I'm a big fan of it. Now don't get me wrong, they're inters, but they have insanely good mechanics on some of the people. I was not a big fan of their support. I don't think their support had very good mechanics, but you'll see I have some of their players in the top of S tier, and then I have other players like their support and attacker in B tier. So definitely a big contrast in the whole team, but I think they work well as a team. They all love to fight. They all love to int a little. Kira, unfortunately, it was one of the best tanks last year. I think he's fallen a little from grace this year. He's been one tricking tree, which does work, but in draft, you're not always going to get tree, and he doesn't look the best on other tanks. He might be one of the best trees in the world, but he doesn't play other tanks as much as he needs to.
Moving on to Latin America South, starting with Fusion, Slash's award for the #1 team to look out for and one of the best 5 teams in the world. I mean, this team really needs no introduction as they are the reigning champions of the most recent international tournament, EUIC.
Yeah, so Fusion is another I Am Tomatoes situation where I knew these guys were insanely good. When I saw them last year, I'm like, wow, this is a top Worlds contender. And then unfortunately, they didn't even make it out of groups last year. I think their name was Qlash, and they didn't make it out of groups. And I was like, wow, like that team was really good. I really thought they'd make it out of groups. And I'm really glad they proved themselves this year. I'm just sad that I'm not like the only person that recognizes them anymore. Fun fact, in Japan, after they lost, like the next day, I was going to the bathroom at the venue, like near the stage, and they all walked in as a team for like a bathroom break, I guess. And I was like, oh, I'm like huge fans of you guys. Like, I think you're like really, really good. I'm sorry you didn't make it out of groups. And their response to me was, sorry, we don't speak English. So unfortunately, I think they'll never realize how big of a fan I was, and before anyone even knew how good they were. So even if they watch this video or my last video, they don't speak English. So it's very unfortunate.
We'll do everything we can to get their message, your message to them, Slash.
So yeah, I have Tempo. I'll say this award because he is the best overall player in the world, in my opinion. And he's the reigning champ of the biggest international tournament this year. So there's no surprise there. Tempo, big fan. Best player in, I believe I said Latam, right, too? Latam and the world.
Yes.
Yeah, and then Anemo, I do have him in S tier here, and again, that's not like, it's not a knock to how good the team is or how good he is. I think he works really well on the team, and honestly, no team's gonna work with all 5 in EX tier. But I do have 2 more in EX tier here. So I have Kia, from, I think I put him somewhere around here. As their support player, and then Draken is really, really good too. I'm right below Tomato. Honestly, these 2 are a close call. I have a lot of respect for both of them as tank players. And last but not least, Zinus. This is one of like the weaker links on their team, in my opinion. For some reason, a lot of the attacker players in Latam seem to be a little bit of inters with their positioning.
Our next team, Imperial Esport. One of the rare cases where a second seed isn't the second best team in their region, falling very short in regionals before finals and qualifying on points alone. They love playing speedsters and going for point leads over EXP.
Yeah, so this team, definitely a lot of fun to watch, like Anteku, but they are not the best macro-wise, I'd say. Their mechanics are definitely pretty decent. They could be on par with SS tier players, but I think they do lack a lot of basic fundamentals that are really easily punishable by a lot of these World teams. And at some point, that has to be a knock to them as players, if the whole team is like that. So I do have Riolu in S tier here because this guy is insanely good at speedsters, like so insanely good. I have him like near the top here. But besides that, the rest of his team, I'm not the biggest fans of. In fact, their defender, I was a big hater of, and their attacker as well. I think there's this one specific play that's still stuck in my mind where the Ray was at like 20% HP, and he was mute and he move swapped, to beam to try to secure, and then the other team secured over the beam. But if you just went E-ball, they would have won the game. So.
Our next team, 3 Digitos. The team that gave Fusion, the current best team in the world, an extremely hard time in their own region, getting second place in regionals and taking Fusion to Game 5. This team definitely has a lot of fundamentals to work on, which is a good thing if they're already this good. The sky's the limit for what they can do at Worlds.
Yeah, so this team is interesting because they do a lot of role swaps, so I'm not sure which to put as top lane or jungler or support or defender, because as you've noticed, I've been doing a big ass tier list of everyone, but I will be doing role specific tier lists, which will be a lot easier to read and go over. I just thought the big jumbo tier list would be kind of fun. Do you think it's cool, Israel?
Yeah, I like it. I like it a lot. You'll find yourself on there, but of course you could individual polls on Twitter and stuff.
So, the only player on their team that I was not the biggest fan of was Yorch. He seemed to be lost a lot, but otherwise the rest of their team, I had at the top of S tier, if not SS tier. I thought they were pretty decent. They gave Fusion a run for their money, so obviously they have to be really, really good. And I believe I have the other two in SS tier. So I guess that's how you pronounce his name. That sounds like a nightmare as a caster, or also really fun at the same time. But he was really good on pretty much every pick he played. I just felt like the macro was a little lacking on his end. But their support player as well, or no, this is their defender player, did his job as a defender. And like I said, if you do your job as a defender, I'm gonna put you S tier because that's really important. And clearly, there's some defenders that don't know their job.
Moving on to our next region, North America. The Orange Juicers will be our first team. The most consistent and best team in North America, the region of the reigning world champions the past 2 years. Zugrug has now won 2 North America regionals in a row, and Kratos has a very good track record of consistent top placing and monthly final wins. Also becoming NA champions with a rookie this year speaks big things about this team heading to Worlds. A lot of awards here too, Slash.
Yeah, and I know you're a big fan of this team too. Especially Flareons, right?
Love the Juicers. I think all of them are very cool. Flareons was a kind of solo queue player sniping my games when I would stream, and then we became friends. I like all of them, and I'm so happy for their success.
Yeah.
Maybe they'll finally get their trophy.
Yeah, unfortunate for them, the whole fiasco. But I actually have Kratos and Zugrug in EX tiers, so I think they're really good, and a lot of them as players, honestly, I get like a sneak peek to like how good they are behind the scenes, because you might watch their gameplay and not realize how good they are. So I admit that some of the NA team placements I might be a little biased because that I know more info, so I'm gonna rank them seemingly more accurate, but some other players from other regions could be exactly like this. I just don't know. But Kratos is probably the best in-game leader in North America. He's just the best leader. I've been trying to lead my new team, and it's really hard. I've been learning a lot and doing better at it, but it just gives me a lot of respect for Kratos to be able to play so well and lead his team and be so consistent. And I believe I have a reward for him, or an award for him around that.
You do. Kratos is Slash's award for the second biggest brain in the world.
Yep. And then the award for Zugrug as well.
Zugrug Slash's award for the most consistent player in North America.
Yeah, so the next 3, I think they're really good mechanically. Like really, really good mechanically. You cannot understate that. These guys could go toe-to-toe with literally the best players in the world in EX tier, no questions asked. But I do think when it comes to macro, when it comes to like positional or like critical decisions, they do lack a lot, and it's lucky that they have Zugrug and Kratos to cover the callouts, because I think the system they have would not work as well in any other team.
We have more awards for the Orange Juicers. Machisel received the award for the best Machamp in the world. Shocking. Flareon's receiving the award for the best rookie in the world. And Roland not receiving an award. The only snub on the Orange Juicers from Slash. Our next team from North America is Nemesis. This team is made up of some of the most consistent players in North America for years, and they did it this year with a new up-and-coming player as well. The best NA team at EUIC with a 4th place finish and a 2nd place finish at Regionals makes them a huge threat to look out for.
Yeah, so Metallic is also a rookie, so there's a lot of up-and-coming talent this year. I'm not sure if he's exactly a rookie 100%, but I just know he wasn't really on top teams last year. So there's such an amount of up-and-coming talent this year. So I have him at the top
wrong,
8 tier.
but I think he just became eligible to compete age-wise. So I believe he's a rookie.
Yeah, well, I mean, a lot of players tend to compete before they're actually eligible, but that's the hope, that he didn't compete before he was eligible. I have no clue. I didn't look too much into it. Yeah, Metallic and Rex at the top of A tier here. Still very respectable rankings, but the one to talk about on this team for me is Trainer. This guy has been so insanely consistent and good for honestly, like, for so long. And like, it's crazy to me because as someone with kind of like, I'm friends with Trainer, so I know he's barely played the game this year. And just like the level of outplaying he did to like Overlord, like, if you watch the games versus Overlord, it's just Trainer outplaying Overlord the whole game. It's just insane to watch. And then the last two I have here are Aznable at the top of A tier as well. And then Yeet Fan. Yeet Fan honestly is probably tied for the award of the biggest inter with Reggie. The amount of inting this guy does, but he's also so insane mechanically, is insane. Like, this guy would probably be AX tier if he didn't int anymore.
We have some awards for Nemesis. Metallic getting Slash's award for the best up-and-coming player in North America, and Trainer getting Slash's award for the best overall player in North America. And I have to say, Trainer is nuts. Watching him all season's been pretty incredible.
Yeah, he's a delight to watch.
Moving on to our next team. Yeah, he is. He's so fun. Moving on to our next team, Luminosity. When this team first formed, it was hailed as a super team, but they've yet to win a single thing. I like that you wrote something. They're definitely looking to prove themselves, with Overlord considered the best player in the world the last 2 years. Let's see how they do at Worlds. And it's true, Luminosity is not the Luminosity from last year, and they still have what a lot of people would consider to be the best player in the world on their team.
Yeah, so this is probably going to be the most shocking part of the tier list for a lot of people watching, since I was teamed with Overlord for so long. But I actually don't even have Overlord in EX tier. I have him at the top of SS tier here. And that's because for me, in the rookie years of an esports, which is what I call like the first 3 years of esports, you really only need a couple of things to be the best player in the world. It's like your mechanics, your critical decision making, and your consistency at doing those 2 things. And I think Overlord had that all. But I think as esports evolves, there's other things that are really, really essential that you need, like communication, innovation, other stuff that's really important, that from having an insider look, Overlord makes no attempt to even work on these things. And he's just content with where he's at, which is fair. But that's why I have him ranked not even in EX. So next is JL, and I might be a little biased because I got kind of snuffed from this team, but I do not have him in SS tier. The only S tiers I have left are Otter and JL, and I do have them at near the top of S tier. I do think they're really, really good. But if you watch regionals, they were very clearly outplayed in a lot of ways, with just a lot of knowledge lacking. And Lutano, for me, Lutano's a special case because he's really, really good on certain picks that he plays. Like Venusaur is the delight to watch. Serena and other picks he's really, really good at. But the issue is these Pokemon are not meta for Worlds, and to me he just simply hasn't adapted. So until I see him play insanely well on some meta Pokemon, he's going to be at the top of A tier for me. And last but not least is Joy, who will also be at the top of A tier.
Well, I don't think anyone will say you're biased here, Slash. happen. And I have to say, I'm disappointed that you didn't give Overlord the award for Father of the Year. I think that was great. Moving on to our next team, we have G, a team of players that didn't have any achievement this year. Ken, you wrote this.
Yep.
Formed under Slash, the two-time world champion, a week before the tournament and managed to win the final stretch grand finals versus Team YT to clinch their spot to Worlds.
Yeah, so I'm actually not planning on ranking my team. But if you guys want to make your own tier list and rank them, the link will be below. This is just on the website you can access.
You ranked them last year.
I did not rank them last year. We had the chat do it. So.
Oh, we had the chat do it. I thought I thought you ranked them because I thought I remember you ranking Rin and me saying I think Rin is unbelievable. But maybe
I did rank them. Yeah, I forget. But this year I decided not to rank them for a variety of reasons. But looking into the future, I just think there's no good to come out of ranking my own team. So
I think you're probably right. Yeah. I think you're probably right about that. But yeah, maybe you could have people in the comments rank your team.
Yeah. If you guys want to join my Discord server and just send me your tier list that you make, I would love to see them. So that'll also be in the link below along with the tier list link.
Moving on to our final region, OC. We're starting with Ground Zero Gaming, the first seed of OCE team, as the player Joe, who Slash has considered the best player in OC, is still the reigning best player, along with some new budding talent in his jungler Buddy. This team is OCE's biggest hope at Worlds this year.
Yeah, so it's gonna be kind of a mean phrase, because these are the last teams. So last and definitely least for me is OC as a region. They were definitely very unimpressive. And seeing some of the drama that goes on in OC, it seems frankly that the pro players do not care about improving the region. So I do think there were two standout players, which are Joe and his jungler was Beagle. And these guys were actually very good mechanically. They didn't actually make that many mistakes mechanically. So they're definitely people to look out for. But the rest of their team, I just think, isn't there. I mean, their Crustle played Stealth Rock's Rock Smash, and they won. So, I watched them just let in a Regieleki and sit in like the bottom bushes for 20 seconds, and they still won the game. So, I just watched some insane stuff go down. That for me, I don't think OC has a chance of making out of groups, and I'm sorry if that's hard to hear. I do respect some OC players a lot, but at the end of the day, that's how bad the region looks right now.
Well, I think the biggest problem with the region is just a lack of competition. You know, as they say, iron sharpens iron, and there just simply aren't enough teams competing for enough great teams to rise to the top. You'll notice that the bigger the region, the more competitive their top teams have to be and are. Moving on to our final team, Onic Esports. They definitely have big shoes to fill and a lot to prove at Worlds.
Yeah, so when I went to EUIC with our scuffed LG team at the time, we actually scrimmed Onic a lot. And I was actually big fans of them. I thought they could do pretty well at EUIC. Unfortunately, we both fell a little short. But I had a lot of faith in what they could maybe become. And I love Suluwu. He's one of my favorite players, and we're friends. But I'm not sure what happened with this team since EUIC. They honestly look like they just fell off a cliff. I'm not sure if it's like motivation lacking after underperformance. But I do have them all in C tier to round off the tier list.
And there you have it, Slash's full ranking of every player heading to Worlds except his own team, which again, I have to say is probably pretty smart. Thanks for having me along for this ride, Slash. I love getting to see it. And you were pretty right last year. Let's see if you're right this year. Yeah,
I was pretty spot on. I'd say I was like 80% accurate. But I didn't want to say that at the start of the video so people don't steal my my analyst efforts. But thanks for joining us, everyone. Thanks for joining me, Spraggles.
Of course. Love you. Thanks for having me, dude.
See you guys in Hawaii.